So first, I would like to ask you all a couple of questions. How many of you are currently high schoolers who have spent a lot of time completing homework? How many of you have endured stress because of this homework? For those who have said yes, the scene may seem like a familiar one to you. A girl sat in the middle of her room, piles of paper on the verge of swallowing her whole, her agenda laid open in front of her. The overwhelming amount of homework listed on it was a promise of yet another sleepless night for her, one of many she had already faced throughout her schooling career. A clock's numbers nearby illuminated a red glow, reminding her of the looming deadline steadily approaching. The effects of pulling another all-nighter was visible. Her eyelids were in a constant flutter as they threatened to overcome her will to stay awake. She clutched her head as stress-induced tears fell from her eyes. Anxiety had crept into her consciousness. That girl is me. That girl is me and many other high schoolers in America. Countless nights I've experienced debilitating stress trying to complete a sizable amount of homework, only to find that it held no educational value in the relation to the next day's lesson. It ultimately failed to improve my understanding of the content being taught. Countless nights I have witnessed my siblings, also in high school, suffer mental breakdowns after succumbing to the pressure of completing every homework assignment handed to them. Valerie Strauss, a Washington Post reporter on education, found in a 2014 survey that 56% of students pick homework as their primary source of stress. 56%. My siblings and I are not alone in our struggle with homework. Here's a few more questions for you all. How many of you have children? How many of you are aware that your children get stressed over homework and genuinely know why that is? See, I was not alone in witnessing the impact extraneous amounts of homework had on my siblings. My parents laid witness as well. However, due to the lack of weight homework carried when they were in school, they couldn't comprehend why we would be so frustrated when completing that night's homework. They couldn't comprehend why we spent numerous hours to complete 1 or 2 homework assignments. My dad had told me that he could not remember ever doing the amount of homework we did, and the truth is, it's because he has not. Wendy Ponte, in her 2008 article, No More Homework, noted that prior to the 1957 launching of Sputnik, a Soviet satellite, students' homework were scant and lacked rigor. After the launch, however, Americans began to fear that without thorough and meticulous educational practices, the U.S. would not develop adept scientists or engineers that can compete with foreigners' pioneering work. The pressure to do well in school rose as did individual competition. This resulted in an increased pressure on teachers to have high-performing students, resulting in the problem we have today: extraneous amounts of homework that demand more time to complete. More time, in fact, than the recommended amount advised by Professor of Education and Psychology at Duke University, Harris Cooper, who states the importance of no more than 2 hours of homework a night. This leads me to my next point: the negative effects homework has on high school students. Now, don't get me wrong, I do recognize the educational value of homework. Trust me, there has been many study guides and worksheets that have saved me from having to repeat a class. However, when used incorrectly, homework has the potential to do a lot of damage to a student, both physically and cognitively. Strauss mentions how many students complained of symptoms like stomach problems, exhaustion, and sleep deprivation due to copious amounts of homework put upon them. How many of you can relate to this? I surely can. After coming home from a tiring day at practice or work, I open my agenda, realizing I have an essay, Spanish conjugate sheet, and math modules due the next day. I feel physically sick as nausea and stress wash over me. In addition to this, I usually tend to skip dinner, promising to myself to eat after finishing the homework assignment due for that day. Since I have never get to finish that homework, however, I just don't eat for that night. I miss out on family-filled meals with discussion and bonding. My poor mother has begun to leave food for me in my room so that I don't forget to eat. Now let's get one thing straight. Procrastination is real. I know it, my siblings know it, my fellow peers know it, and the majority of them can admit to doing it. I can. I know that after coming home from work or my day off work, I feel like stripping myself from bra and book bag and heading straight to bed when I can reach my manga or maybe catch up on one of my shows, knowing full well that I have something due the next day. This causes for some added time to complete things, but the point is that it has been proven that when homework load is large to begin with, it holds no educational value. Proponent of progressive education and lecturer of education, Alfie Cohan, in his book, The Homework Myth, Why Our Kids Get Too Much of a Bad Thing, states that while studies have shown that some benefits were evident when looking at homework assigned to high school students, when too much homework was assigned, they disappeared and actually showed signs in reducing academic achievement. In regards to finding a solution to the problem, teachers and the Board of Education need to allow an open discussion policy between educators and students in order to find the type of homework most beneficial in furthering understanding of the subject's contents. Teachers should assign homework purely based off of furthering a student's comprehension towards the subject, and not just to assign busy work or to gather grades for the gradebook. 10 years from now, when I have kids of my own, I hope they live a life void of sleepless nights and tired eyes. I hope they live a life untouched by unnecessary amounts of stress due to homework. I hope they live a life where they do not have to battle anxiety early in the morning and late at night. I hope they live a life where homework becomes a helpful tool rather than a heavy burden.